Revealing discovery. Donald Trump's financiers unveiled, leaving everyone astonished. A bombshell discovery has just shaken the political landscape of the United States. The financiers behind Donald Trump have finally been revealed, and the revelation is leaving everyone stunned. This discovery sheds new light on the backstage of political financing and raises questions about the interests that may influence the decisions of the former president. Who are these mysterious financiers and what is their role in Trump's politics? See everything now.
But we begin tonight with Donald Trump's long line of magical financial saviors. From his father to Deutsche Bank to other financiers, Trump has always had financial rescuers swoop in and come to the rescue when he messes up, which has happened a lot. The latest is billionaire Don Henke. He's the owner of the insurance company that just put up the $175 million bond in Trump's New York civil fraud case. According to Forbes, Henke's company, Knight Specialty Insurance, is the one that initiated the deal with Trump. Henke told Forbes that Trump's collateral to secure the loan was a combination of cash and investment-grade bonds. You may wonder why Henke, or really anyone, would want to put up such a large sum of money for Trump, especially now. Well, it turns out it's not the only loan Henke has doled out to Trump recently. Henke is also the largest investor in Axos Bank, the financial institution that refinanced Trump's loan on Trump Tower and his money-losing Doral, Florida golf course in 2022 to the tune of $100 million and $125 million, respectively. Perhaps Henke doesn't want to see Trump's assets get seized so that he can keep collecting his money, including interest. This comes after another of Trump's failing businesses, Truth Social, seems to be going bust. Shares of the stock plunged more than 20% yesterday as the company announced it lost more than $58 million last year. It couldn't have helped that there was talk that Trump was trying to get the company's board to let him out of his obligation to hold on to the stock as per the normal rules so that he could dump it to pay for his civil fraud judgment. So the stock has been revealed to be a pump and dump scam. Surprise. But is that really a surprise? It's not like Truth Social is all that popular. It's estimated to only have roughly 5 million active users compared to the billions with a B who use TikTok or Facebook. I mean, other than Trump, can you name any other prominent Truth Social users? Right. I can't either. So that's why Trump was left to turn to Don Henke to bail him out. And remember, putting up these bonds, like he also did in the E. Jean Carroll case, are all attempts to tie these judgments up in appeals so that he can prolong having to pay anyone. It's not like he has a factual case to make in his appeals, but that doesn't matter to him. This also all comes against the backdrop of his imminent criminal hush money trial in New York and the utter desperation dripping from Trump. Since nothing he's done so far has helped him keep the trial from starting later this month. That includes trying to terrorize the judge's daughter through social media posts, which has finally led Judge Juan Marchand to expand the gag order against Trump, making family members, including his and Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's, off limits. In last night's order, Marchand claims that Trump's pattern of attacking family members serves no legitimate purpose other than injecting fear in those called to participate in the trial. Quote, all citizens called upon to participate in these proceedings, whether as a juror, a witness, or in some other capacity, must now concern themselves not only with their own personal safety, but with the safety and the potential for personal attacks upon their loved ones. That reality cannot be overstated. It is no longer just a mere possibility or a reasonable likelihood that there exists a threat to the integrity of the judicial proceedings. The threat is very real. Admonitions are not enough, nor is reliance on self-restraint. Self-restraint is something Trump has never had. And that was clearly shown by his return this morning to raging about the judges in his various cases, with the noted exception of the friendly Florida judge in his document retention case, and testing the boundaries of Judge Marchand's gag order. And perhaps showing their desperation, Trump's lawyers are seeking to move Marchand's recusal for a second time. In a letter to the judge yesterday that was just released publicly this afternoon, they are citing the social media posts from the judge's daughter, as well as the newly expanded gag order, as cause for the judge to rethink his decision last year not to recuse himself. At least they started this time with their letter by saying, we respectfully submit this request. Small things. Joining me now is Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor, MSNBC legal analyst, and host of the Justice Matters podcast. Tim O'Brien, senior executive editor of Bloomberg Opinion and an MSNBC political analyst, and former senator and MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to start at a table here with you, Tim. Trump's former lawyer, Ty Cobb, he talked about why these attacks continue on these judges, and he says the following: "It's clearly strategic." And this guy served as his White House lawyer, Ty Cobb did. "His attacks are designed around his traditional approach to delegitimize the proceedings. It's about stalling. It's about trying to make this case not start this month."
And there's a track record there. Remember, he did this throughout the Mueller investigation. He basically engaged in witness intimidation. I think there was overt obstruction of justice during that investigation. He did this routinely in New York as a developer. If he couldn't get the zoning he wanted, he'd go after mayors. If he couldn't get a local business to get out of his way, he went after the business owners. He's just doing this on a bigger stage now, of course.
Sure.
And the implications of it are far more disturbing because he's a former president with a closely watched social media feed and with followers who are deeply devoted to him. So when he makes a threat to anyone in his purview, it carries the real possibility of violence with it, whether it's a court judge or an election worker or anyone else. And so this defense that he's mounted, I think in every court case, certainly in the J6 trial, in Georgia and in New York, is he's merely exercising his free speech rights. He has a right to say he thinks the courts are coming after him. He's got a right to say he could assemble on the mall on January 6th and incite people to riot because he was just exercising his free speech. When in fact, any free speech protection in this country doesn't encompass calls to violence or calls to commit crimes. So I think the problem is that the system itself doesn't take someone like him into account fully so they're prepared for it before he starts doing it. On the admirable side of the ledger, you have Judge Merchan, who's a public servant, who clearly drafted a gag order that didn't anticipate that Trump would then turn around and target his own daughter. And then you have other people who are easily manipulated, like his business partners, who he then abuses in public. But what happens at the end of the day is there aren't enough people simply holding him to account like an average citizen instead of a special case. And in his case, a basket case.
Right. And Glenn, it becomes the question of what can you do about it, right? Because who gonna check me, boo? They might say in the streets. Because the reality is he knows he's not going to jail. Jonathan Alter had a great piece where he said maybe he should make him clean the sidewalks or clean streets like they do with some other prisoners. But he knows he's not going to be incarcerated for it. So he's using what amount to mob tactics to just try to make the case stop, make it stop any way he can.
Joy, I will never give up on the rule of law. And I hear when you say he knows he's not going to jail. But look, Judge Merchan is all about business. I'd like to think Donald Trump has perhaps met his match in Judge Merchan. I think he also met his match in Judge Tanya Chutkan down in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, Tanya Chutkan is no match for the Supreme Court, which brought his D.C. federal prosecution to a screeching halt for no good reason, because there's no constitutional support for the notion that a president is absolutely immune from being prosecuted for crimes he commits against the American people while in office. But Judge Merchan is all about business. He has put this gag order in place. He's expanded it. Will Donald Trump violate it? Of course he will. And the New York law provides that two things can happen if he is found to be in criminal contempt. One, he can be fined $1,000. Big whoop for Donald Trump. But he can also be jailed for up to 30 days. I am not prepared to give up the ghost on Donald Trump never seeing the inside of a jail cell, because there will have to be some punishment if he violates this gag.
Yeah. And Claire, the good news, I think, in all of this mess is that what you're starting to see is a break in the fear cycle. You're starting to see a handful, not a lot, but a handful of Republican politicians who say, you know what? No, I'd rather leave office than have to deal with this guy. I'm not going to support him. You saw Mark Esper, his former defense secretary, say, I won't vote for him. You're starting to see cracks in the fear. And I think the leaders of that have been the members of our judicial branch. You've seen prosecutors like Letitia James, like Fonnie Willis, who says you can try to humiliate me. You can do whatever you want. I'm not giving up. I'm going to prosecute you. Judge Merchan, who says you're attacking my daughter. You're not going to continue to do that. I'm going to stand up to those who say it would be a bad look for me to expand, this order to shut you up, talking about my family. You're starting to see that people will stand up to him, and not just Jack Smith. That seems to me to be good news.